Hey everyone, Pete Byrne, WSBT-22 Sports, joined as always by Tyler James, co-publisher of Inside Indy Sports. Tyler, we just had a chance to visit with Notre Dame head coach Marcus Freeman, and as feared, the win over Purdue, while impressive, comes at quite a cost for Notre Dame. We find out that two guys are done for the season and another for quite a while. Jordan Botelho, the defensive end, and Ashton Craig, both out for the season after suffering knee injuries against Purdue. And then Billy Schroth, their guard, has an ankle injury. He's going to miss at least several weeks. So what kind of a bind does this put the Irish in, first and foremost?
Yeah, let's start with Botelho. That's not great news. Botelho has continued to improve throughout his career and is probably on track to have his best season in a Notre Dame uniform. Playing that Viper role where they rush and they drop back in coverage sometimes is a very versatile role. Yeah. The fortunate thing for Notre Dame is that Boubacar Traore, a sophomore, is sort of a rising player. He had the pick six against Purdue. So that will be who takes on the majority of the responsibilities without him. That just thins the depth there. Junior Tua Halamaka is an experienced player as a junior, even though his name is also Junior. But he hasn't shown as much like explosiveness out of that position, so I don't know if you're going to get the same sort of pass rush out of him that you will from Traore, but certainly thins the depth there, and a really talented and deep position becomes less talented and less deep. On the offensive line, I thought going into the season that was Notre Dame's two best offensive linemen, Ashton Craig and Billy Schroth, so I think those are big losses. The good news is that Notre Dame has two veterans that are tasked with replacing them. Rocco Spindler, who started 10 games last season in that right guard spot and only lost the job when Billy Schroth replaced him after Rocco suffered a knee injury of his own. So he's in there, has experience, should be plenty comfortable playing that position. And then Pat Coogan replacing Ashton Craig. Coogan started all 13 games last year, but at the left guard spot. The center role is something he's practiced. He started out in his career as a reserve center, was working some center this preseason because they knew that he would probably be the next guy in at that position. So to have experience in those guys that are replacing those guys is absolutely valuable. But then what happens next if someone else goes down? That's the thing you have to worry about. Now, obviously, those guys still have to play really well. They didn't play well enough to win their starting spots back this preseason, but I thought they played pretty well against Purdue. So there's some reason to have some confidence, but obviously with an offensive line, chemistry is so important, so you got to make sure that everyone's on the same page. You'd like to think when you put veterans in, it should be an easier transition, but it's still an important transition nonetheless.
And you've played offensive line at the college level. I mean, how difficult is that to achieve? It's one thing to bring in guys with experience, and some of them maybe not necessarily at the position that they have experience playing in the past, but how difficult is it to get five guys to function as one?
It's very difficult, and I think that was why you were a little nervous going into this season because Notre Dame was rotating and trying to figure things out and lost a left tackle, and so much competition was going on in the preseason. But for the most part, the offensive line has played decently. They haven't played great. Certainly room for improvement. You pin some of that on the inexperience, but I think it should be something they can handle. But, yeah, it certainly is a challenge, especially for Pat Coogan playing a different spot. Rocco Spindler's got to get used to playing with a different right tackle and Emil Wagner than he played with last season when he was playing next to Blake Fisher. So a lot of different chemistry and situations that you have to get used to. But they had some experience in the preseason doing that, even though obviously that's a lot different than doing it on a Saturday in a game. But, yeah, you got to make sure the communication is there. And Riley Leonard spoke to this after the game. The offensive line unit is so tight-knit. They're around each other all the time, not just in the football facility. So that should lend itself to allowing that chemistry to sort of gel maybe quicker than it could if it was in a different situation.
Yeah, he did have some good insights into that on Saturday. I remember. I'm going to ask you one more question about the line before we move on. And if we were to ask this to Marcus Freeman, he would simply say, when injuries occur, the next man goes in. That's inevitable. Given the fact that Notre Dame has essentially lost three offensive line starters for the year when you throw in Charles Jagas, who got injured in the preseason, it's a testament to their depth that they still have veterans playing across the line. But at what point, as you look up and down the roster, at what point does this depth run out, and how dire would it be if injuries continued for them?
Yeah, especially on the offensive line, I think it would be pretty challenging. Tosh Baker is really the only one that has significant experience, and even his experience is limited compared to some of the other guys that have played a lot. But he's been missing time with a shoulder injury, so how quickly can he get back and be able to play? He's probably the backup tackle at either right or left side right now. Sullivan Absher is someone we saw playing left tackle in reserve against Purdue, so maybe he could get in the mix, but he's someone that hasn't played much during his Notre Dame career. So, yeah, they're really thin there. They're experienced reserves are starting to run out. So we'll see what those guys can do if needed. I think the defensive line still has pretty decent depth. They need to get Joshua Burnham back, who missed last week with an ankle injury, and I think that is something that should be solvable. But I think it does. You lose a veteran piece, a guy that was really peaking at this point of his career. So really important for Jordan Botelho, but I think the defense should be able to handle that loss.
So we move on. One thing that we did get to see in the win over Purdue, because it was so lopsided, was a lot of young guys got to play and get some experience under the belt, and some of them flashed. In fact, I think some of them actually flashed in the first half. Guys that come to mind are Kennedy Urlacher and then Young. Both played really good minutes, and I thought really well. They both have really talented guys playing ahead of them, so I don't know how much you'll see them in the near future. But what do you think we learned about some of the young talent on this team? And I'll throw Aeneas Williams in there too. You also got some good time early. Without looking too far into the future looks pretty bright at some of these spots.
Yeah, Bryce Young. It's funny, the two guys you mentioned first are son of NFL Hall of Famers. Bryce Young, the son of Bryant Young. You can look at him. He's a physically impressive person as just a freshman playing that defensive end spot. Maybe he can play even more strong side defensive end if they decide they need Joshua Burnham to play the Viper role. But yeah, physically gifted, physically imposing. I think he still has some physical maturation to do, but he seems to be getting a sense for the defense. It was the season opener at Texas A&M where he got a couple of goal line reps, so obviously the confidence in his ability is high. Kennedy Urlacher was flying all over the field. That's sort of what he's known for. Maybe playing a little bit reckless, but he's getting to the ball fast. He's gonna bring the pain with the hit. Smaller than his dad, but certainly someone that Notre Dame has a lot of confidence in and high expectations for moving forward. So if the safety depth chart does take some hits, I think that would be a guy that could play a role and play it well. Aeneas Williams is a guy that his role is sort of evolved as the season has gone on as a running back who can play on third down, help pass protect for you, and also catch passes out of the backfield. Devin Ford is mostly filling that role, but I think as Aeneas gets better, I think there's maybe some more versatility to his game than Devin Ford brings. So I think that's someone that Notre Dame would like to continue to bring along and give some more opportunities to.
Notre Dame brings in Miami of Ohio this weekend. I don't want to get too into the MAC conference references as another MAC team was here not long ago. We know how that ended up. But what do you expect to see this weekend from the Irish?
Yeah, I would expect them to play pretty sharp. I don't know if it's going to be as lopsided as the Purdue game was, but I would expect something similar where Notre Dame can sort of impose its will on the opponent and sort of have control of the game from start to finish. I think there'll probably be some uneven parts of the offense. Like, I don't think the offense is going to look spectacular all the time yet. So Riley Leonard maybe can get some more downfield throwing opportunities. But I do think that this should be a game that Notre Dame handles well. I think the defense will be swarming all over the place and will be playing with a lot of confidence to really make it easier on the offense as well.
All right, Tyler, as always, appreciate your time.
You bet.
He's Tyler James, co-publisher of Inside ND Sports, and that's going to do it for us. You can catch the Fighting Irish this weekend at 3:30 right here at Notre Dame Stadium as they take on Miami of Ohio. Of course, you can catch all the highlights and post-game reaction that night on WSBT-22. You can also follow us all week long on WSBT.com for coverage. You can also get much more of that with our friends at InsideNDSports.com.
I'm Pete Byrne from WSBT-22 News. For more Notre Dame stories, like and subscribe to the WSBT-22 YouTube page. Thanks for watching.